right, today we're going to talk about Old Henry, which is a movie set in the Old West somewhere. They don't really specify where, but it's kind of a way out in the middle of nowhere sort of story about an old man. He's not really that old, but his name is Henry. And he lives on a farm. He lives on a farm with his young son, whose name is Wyatt. And with the next door neighbor of his brother-in-law, whose name is Al. And so the setting for this story is, it's middle of nowhere, and what happens is Henry comes across a man who's dead. Comes across a dead man with a whole bunch of cash, and this is kind of the premise for the story, is kind of the big question, the hook, if you want to go for the story, is the question of what would you do? You found a man who's dead, and you have found a whole lot of cash. There seems to be someone after him. Of course, actually, the story begins with you showing what happens to, there's three men who are hunting after something. And then, of course, we come across the dead man with the cash. But then it turns out the man is actually not dead, just grievously wounded. So you basically have all these questions and all these issues and all these things of what are you going to do, which is a good way to start it off. So this is kind of the beginning, the initial setting for the story, but kind of what I wanted to focus on today is there's actually 3 changes I would make to this movie to take it from good, in my opinion, I would take it from a good movie, to a great movie. Because it is a good movie. It's like a 7 out of 10, 6 or 7 out of 10. Again, I'm usually pretty harsh on my number gradings, but I think there's 3 things that really kind of pull the story down a little bit and kind of reset and pull you out of the immersion, especially, which is always a shame because especially the movie does such a good job of drawing you in. So one aspect the movie does really well is the realism aspect, where it's just really down to earth, basically. There's kind of this real realism where it's like, hey, one guy, one gun versus another guy, one gun. So there's the idea that you could die. It's really easy to die, that they're outnumbered, There's not this, you can suddenly, just teleport around like some of these assassin movies where the super strong gunfighter can just seemingly teleport around, basically, where they always manage to just appear right where they need to behind the guy and be like, don't move, They've always got the drop on them or something like that. And here's the unsuspecting guy who's here, not suspecting anything. He's got a little smiley face. Not suspecting anything, and the assassin guy sneaks up behind him and says, don't move. From there. So this is kind of what the story does a really good job of. Now, what keeps you interested in the beginning of the story, there's 2 really good tension aspects with it. One of them is the father-son dynamic, where you can tell the son is feeling suffocated on the farm because it's just him and his dad. There's literally nothing else. So he's on the run, and you're constantly given hints and aspects and everything of the father's past, where he has this mysterious past. And this comes up when you find out that there's a whole bunch of guns hidden there. He won't let his son use a gun, but he has a whole bunch of guns. There's this aspect of his, he did a whole bunch of stuff that he's not proud of. But then he came here, married his wife, who's now died due to tuberculosis. She is R.I.P. She died from tuberculosis and all that. And now he's here raising his son, and he's going to do it right. He's going to live an honest man's life. And so this is where a lot of the tension is coming from, because what it is the son thinks that the father doesn't understand, the father doesn't really understand, or he has different priorities from his son. And then the other aspect is when you take this dead man, it turns out he says that he's a sheriff. He's a lawman. He's dressed as a lawman. That's kind of the reason why they help him out. And you're then added with this choice of, do we trust him? Is he, telling the truth or not? There's an aspect of, is this telling the truth? It kind of adds a whole bunch of tension to it. And then 2, the other aspect that does a really good job of doing is when first Henry comes up across the cash, he just basically, it's really funny because he comes up to the cash and just goes, he says, nope. and turns around because he knows it's trouble. It's nothing but trouble. You got basically a guy who's about to die and a whole bunch of cash. This is nothing but trouble. And he turns and leaves. He just goes, you know what? I'm just going to turn and go home. And as he's walking home, he stops and goes back and gets the money. And it's just like real great tension because the second he's taken the money, there's this kind of impending doom aspect. Where you can see that these three men who are hunting something, and they're cruel. They, you see them kind of really cruelly kill this guy. You know that they are hunting after the money. They're here for the money. And so now Henry has just taken the money from there, and this is adding another layer of tension. So what you're building towards is if you got the father's son, you've got the father plus the sheriff. There's kind of this ongoing tension of what's going to happen. What's going to happen? What do you do? What do you do? Because the father, what are they going to do with the sheriff is a really good tension aspect to it. Because what you have is you have a guy and they go and they save him, and then he seemingly, they're not sure if they can trust him, but then he wakes up in somebody else's house, and he gets up and he then holds a knife to the son. He gets the drop on the son, holds a knife to him, and is getting like, where am I? What's going on? And he's getting ready to possibly, very likely, hurt the son. And then old Henry comes in and just kicks him in the face. And it's the most satisfying moment. But again, it's this tension. It's this tension because what you have is the son is doing something he's not supposed to. I think he's playing with his dad's guns, or he didn't listen to his dad. And so the sheriff, this guy, whose name is Curry gets the drop on him after not listening to his dad. So you have this tension of, oh no, is this guy who gonna hurt the son? Because Henry is out and about scouting because he's on the lookout because he knows something's coming. So he's trying to keep an eye out for everything. There's just tension in the air. And then Curry attacks the son. And then luckily, Henry pops back, kicks Curry in the face, knocks him out. It's the most satisfying kick I've ever seen. And then he gets knocked out, and then they get tied up. And then now there's kind of this reset where it's like, okay, what do we do with now? We saved him. Do we kill him? And this is what adds a lot of the tension towards the movie. Because again, what the movie is continually building towards is this actual showdown with the three men. So it's Henry versus the three men. And this is what the tension is building towards. So it's quite a good movie. It's quite a good movie. But the main thing I wanted to talk about is the aspect of three changes I would actually make to it. So these are three overall changes, mostly towards the end. Because again, I think the beginning of the movie does a really good job of just ratcheting up this tension of what do you do? Who do you trust? Because again, it's this idea of you're in the middle of nowhere. If you're killed, no one's finding you. Like this is, again, added to this realism aspect. There's no phones. There's no nothing. If you take a man into your house who's a bad guy, he's going to kill you, and then nobody's going to find you. Nobody's going to find out what happened. You're just dead. So what do you do? But if he is a sheriff, are you just going to murder him? Are you going to let him die? Are you going to kill him? This is the tension that it's building, because this is a movie where they did a really good job building up the tension aspect of it. Tension. There we go. And kind of building on this. What do you do? What do you do? Something's going wrong. What do you do? What do you do? What do you do? And so now, as far as the changes, what we have here is basically the, I'll just build this up to the part where I would actually make the changes. So what we do, fast forwarding a bit, is you have the three men show up and demand Henry turn over the sheriff. The sheriff is even like, yeah, you should probably just give me up. And Henry's like, nope, I'm not going to do that. We're going to, you're a lawman. We're going to fight this out together. And so then they say they're going to fight it. And then the sheriff, Ketchum, the leader of the three men, whose name is Ketchum, he says, actually, I'm a sheriff, and the other guy is a criminal. And again, this is adding another layer to the story. However, Ketchum is very suspicious. He's very, very obviously not a sheriff. You can kind of get the sense where he's pretty evil. And so there's this standoff where they're like, okay, no, I'm not going to turn him over. You need to get off my land. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what the guy is, anything like that. And so they know they're pretty sure he's in there. So they leave to go get some more men. And then one of the men shows up trying to shoot Henry. And then they're getting shot at and all this stuff. And then Henry goes and actually kills him because he's sneaking underneath the floor, kills him. And then Ketchum, the leader of the 3 men, now the 2 men, goes and gets a whole bunch of more men from town. Basically, there's a few miles away, there's town. They get a few hired hands and hired guns to come storm the place from there. And what you end up with is where you have, the inside. We'll call this the inside. All right, so here's the scene. What we've got is inside, we've got Henry and Wyatt and Curry, the sheriff who's injured, because again, he got shot, versus Ketchum plus the gang. There's a whole bunch of them. There's like 8 or 10 of them, basically. And this is the part where it starts to, in my opinion, mistakes in the story. There's three things that I would fix as far as this goes. So the first one is that turns out the big reveal for the movie is actually that Henry, old Henry, that is, Henry is actually Billy the Kid. And I understand what they're trying to do is build up this great moment where you don't know who you're messing with, and then it turns out it's Billy the Kid. And in my opinion, it doesn't really do much. It doesn't really add much to it. Think of it if like the Equalizer or even John Wick or anything like that. Again, John Wick does a good idea of building up the mythos of John Wick. They create a whole mythos around John Wick, and that's what's going on. For like the Equalizer or the Foreigner or something like that, they don't need to be anyone real. They just need to be who they are, which is the hidden badass, basically, where suddenly that reveals that they have all these, they're just living a normal life, and the bully comes along and then flips it on them and gets them and stuff like that. You don't need them to be anyone real. And it adds to this kind of bizarrety because it also kind of ends up cutting against the realism aspect of it, because it turns out that Curry, one of his backstory elements, the sheriff over here, is that he was there when Billy the Kid died, That's their connection. He was there when Billy the Kid died. And so then you have to think about it. What are the odds that this guy is going to run into a random house or get taken in by a random house, into a random house by random strangers? And it just so happens to be Billy the Kid. And it turns out he was there when Billy the Kid died. What a coincidence. And it's just one of those things where it's like, I just don't think it's actually needed. You don't get anything from it. There's not like, oh, they messed with Billy the Kid. I thought they messed with this other random old guy who is secretly really awesome, but it turns out he's Billy the Kid. Again, it doesn't add anything to it. And the coincidences of winding up there of all homes in Kansas or Colorado or wherever they're at, it just doesn't really work for me. It doesn't add anything to it, and it's just not necessary. I just don't really think it's necessary. Now, there's one aspect you may be able to say that it's necessary, but we can tweak some of that, and it doesn't actually work. So, I would just have him be old Henry, and have his past be a mystery, because there's the other aspect where you have this super mysterious past, which is really cool to have this mystery, because what you have is this enigmatic shadow of the past where it's cool and awesome, and he maybe did some bad stuff. And this is what we're going to cash in on when he finally fights the bullies, is they don't know what this history of awesomeness, coolness, and getting the bad guy is about to be unleashed. Because, they keep building up. Al, the brother-in-law, is like, you do not understand the hell which you are about to release. It's this mysterious past. And I don't really think it adds to it. It doesn't play like the story is wanting it to. Now, it's possible that the author or the writer and director, it's the same person, studied a lot of Westerns, and so I know roughly a little bit about Billy the Kid. He could shoot anything he aimed at. Basically, he had this amazing... But you don't need that. Again, we believe Henry has a good shot because he can go and shoot people and then they get hit. And that's just it. And that's you don't need anything extra from there. So that would be number one. He's not Billy the Kid, he's just old Henry. And old Henry has a mysterious past where he's awesome, basically, from there. You don't know who you're messing with, and when he kills everybody, you'll know, oh, okay, he's not somebody to be messed with. You let that stand for itself. And again, the coincidence aspect of it just doesn't really mesh with the stark realism that the story is going for from there. So that's change number one. Change number two, what happens during the standoff, the initial standoff, is they actually get Al, the brother-in-law, out there. And Al is a huge guy. Like, he's so big. It is funny to me how big of a dude they make him. He's a tank of a man. So what happens is Henry comes out to the front porch. He comes out here. So now he's out here. I can't draw it because it'll look confusing. He comes out here and he's negotiating with Ketchum, who's like, get out here or I'll kill your brother-in-law. And Henry goes out there with his gun. And you're like, all right, here comes the moment. Henry's going to kill them all. And then what happens is Ketchum ends up shooting Al, and he dies. So, bleh, basically. And then, there's his brains and stuff. And so now he equals dead. And this is the moment where you're supposed to activate the badass card. This is the moment where you cross the line. Now I'm going to kill you all. But nope, turns out all the gang starts shooting, and there's a whole bunch of bullets. And then Henry goes back inside to go get his gun. And then come back outside to have the showdown moment. And I watched that and I was like, I really do not understand this. This is basically just the silliest thing ever. Because even if you wanted to have a moment where it's like, it's not realistic to have these perfect moments. But what happened is Henry runs outside, his brother-in-law gets shot, dodges a gazillion bullets because the gang all starts shooting at him. Like, all these bullets start flying. The gang is trying to kill him now with a whole bunch of bullets. Turns out they can't hit anything. They got stormtrooper mode. So they go all the way. He goes inside, gets his guns, comes outside, and then starts killing everybody. I would just skip that. You don't need that. What you do is he goes out there, gets his gun. As he's walking outside, they kill Al. He comes out, starts shooting everyone. Bam, 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 bam. It's a great moment where you play that card because it's basically like you play the penultimate of the moment card. And it just doesn't work because it's just like get ready to do the cool thing. And it just doesn't work. So you just need to do it. So that's number two. And then number three is what happens in our story is Henry goes through and he's shooting everybody and killing them, and he's amazing shot. Again, doesn't have to be Billy the Kid to be amazing shot. He could just be an unknown wanted outlaw, and that adds to the depth and mystery of the world where you have each farmhouse, there's somebody who lives there with the story. It doesn't have to be the story, just be their own story, this mystery to it. And you don't need that. He doesn't need to be Billy the Kid. So they start shooting each other, and then Henry starts, this part's really great, where all the men there's like 10 men start splitting up and trying to get into the house, and Henry's going around the house and killing them one by one. He's basically, taking them out one by one from there, and then he goes and kills basically everyone. He kills the translator, the Mexican guy who's getting ready to get the drop on him. He kills him. Again, Henry could also just know really Spanish because they were saying, oh, Billy the Kid can speak Spanish as good as the Mexicans. And then he learns how to speak, he reveals it. And that's kind of the reveal for how you know he's Billy the Kid, is that he can speak really good Spanish. And you could easily get around that. You don't need that. He could just be another guy. Because I didn't know Billy the Kid spoke good Spanish. I know Billy the Kid was a bandit and killed a bunch of people and robber and was a good shot. That was basically it. From there, and then Henry goes through, kills all the gang. So one by one, they're all dying. Basically, he's just killing them all, and it's a really, really great scene. Ketchum runs off into the woods, and then Henry and him kind of have a showdown fight with the last boss, and then he also dies. Then he equals dead. From there, and then Henry comes back inside, and this is the third thing I would change because in my opinion it kind of neuters the climax and the finale for it. Because what you have then is Henry comes back, and as he's kind of wounded, he's very, very wounded from it, but it's not really indicated whether or not he's going to make it or not. He's just wounded, but he seems to be moving still, but he's just wounded. Curry, it's revealed that Curry has this brand basically which means he's a criminal. I can't remember what the brand is. I don't know. It's like some symbol, or like just C for criminal maybe. And then it's revealed, and Henry sees it. And so then Curry goes, I wish you hadn't saw that. And then he shoots Henry. So, wish you hadn't seen that. And so he shoots Henry. And then he's like, not only that, but I'm going to be the man who killed Billy the Kid. You know, I'm going to be famous. This is going to be awesome. And luckily in this time, and now at this moment, I hate Curry. I'm just like, this guy, we've saved your life. Henry saved your life like 3 times, didn't turn you over, saved your life. And then it also doesn't really jive with the whole aspect where he's like, turn me over, you should turn me over. But to then turn around and kill the guy who's then saved him, you know, instead of, you know, sacrifice, you're one moment ready to sacrifice yourself for the guy who saved you, you know, 1 time. But then now he saved you like 3 or 4 times. Now you're ready to betray him. It doesn't really make sense. He kills him, and then Wyatt comes in with a shotgun and blows his head off, and I was so happy. Because the other aspect is I now hate Curry more than Ketchum. Ketchum is the villain, the guy who just murdered Al, the brother-in-law, who's causing all this misery. But I hate Curry more than him. Like, all my hatred of Curry just obliterates everything else from there. So what I would change and what I would do is, instead of this, is Henry comes back from his fight with Ketchum. Let me actually move over here. Henry comes back, and he lays in bed and dies. Bam. He dies in his bed. And, all right, so he dies in his bed, and then what happens is Curry's talking to himself, and he's like, I'm going to take credit. So he's going to you can either do it by cutting his head off or taking his dead body in. I don't really know if they did the cutting the head off thing back in the Wild West, but something where it's this desecration of the body, because you could understand from a twisted logic where the guy's dead. It doesn't matter anymore. You know, I can take it and I can use this to get my life back. It's still selfish. It's really selfish, but there is a logic to it. But also, Henry's already dead, so it doesn't matter, you know, if you're gonna desecrate his body in a sense, because the damage has already been done. And then Wyatt comes in and blows his head off, because he's again, you can see, like, this is the last straw, fella. Like, you know, we saved your life a whole bunch of times, and you just don't get it, so now you're dead. And then this means that Ketchum can still be the main villain, because this is my problem, is I hate Curry. Curry is the real villain. Curry becomes the real, you know, the true evil villain, rather than Ketchum, which again, you kind of forget all about Ketchum murdering Al and all that from there, where Ketchum really should be the villain from there, and it kind of really takes that away and kind of adds this light to me, you know, just like, and then it also kind of, I just hated Curry so much. Like, he was just such an ungrateful SOB. Like, it was absolutely just so obnoxious of a character from there. And I think this would really help and fix that angle from there. And I think those 3 changes would help fix it. Because 1, you don't have this weird, oh, it's a secret reveal or anything. I just thought Henry was Henry. Like, Henry doesn't need to be anyone else other than Henry for that. 2, the other aspect is this like getting ready to then go kill the bad guys. This moment just needs to all be cut from there. And Curry does not need to become the evil villain. He needs to be just that kind of sleazy. He is a very sleazy looking guy. The actor who played him did an amazing job with him. But I would just tweak that and I would change that, because I think those 3 things would help really make the story a lot better. So, but yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I will see you in the next one.